Every quarterback's injured, but we have the playoffs on the line, ladies and gentlemen. We got to get in there, and hopefully you're already in. Hopefully we're just playing for seeding regardless. This is an incredibly important week. Starting off tier 1, we are going to go CMC Tyreek. Nothing to talk about. Going down to tier 2, CeeDee Lamb averaging 22 points per game, implied team total of 28.5 points. You want to start CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen we'll throw in here. You'll throw in Amon-Ra St. Brown. All these players are super safe options. Alvin Kamara will be in at 6. Now, these rankings will be for a full PPR format where obviously Kamara does have a very high floor with his receiving usage. Plus, it's a great matchup going up against the Carolina Panthers. The only question is if we don't have the check down princess and instead it is Jameis Winston, will the targets come down for Kamara just a bit? But then we'll go AJ Brown and Stephon Diggs at 7 and 8. The reason we'll have them at the bottom end of the tier is just because if you're looking at Vegas projections right now, Vegas is telling us that these are going to be the two bad offenses for these receivers, where you do have an implied team total about 24.5 points for the Eagles and about 22.5 points for the Bills. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Bijan Robinson at 9. Now, I know maybe I'm just a Bijan Robinson fanboy, blah, blah, blah. This is the highest they've ever had Bijan's underdog pick'em, at least to my knowledge. They currently have him at 92.5 total yards going up against the Bucs. Super safe running back, seeing usage on all 3 downs, and you have the least amount of Tyler Algier in this offense than we've had all season. Travis Etienne will be our next guy here at 10 with the massive question mark. We just have no idea what this situation is going to be like when you are looking at Trevor Lawrence. I am operating under the assumption that we are going to have no Lawrence, no Kirk. Now, Lawrence was at practice today. I will say I'm very biased here, really hoping we don't have Trevor Lawrence. I have a $1,000 underdog league on the line, and I'm battling out the last playoff spot with a team that has Lawrence. I need him not to play. Jahmyr Gibbs will be our next running back. With Gibbs, honestly, if you're looking at his underdog pick'em, he would be significantly behind here. Like if you're looking at his pick'em right now, they have him at 11.25 fantasy points. I don't mind going with the more than 11 fantasy points for Jahmyr Gibbs. If you're looking at Devon Achane, they have Achane as the better option with more yards, and they have Achane at even odds to score a touchdown this week. So if you are looking at the underdog pick'ems, they're going to tell you to go Achane over Gibbs. I would maybe agree with that for a half PPR league, but a full PPR format, I want the running back that's going to be used as a receiver. We'll go with Zach Moss at 13. I mean, if you're just looking at the underdog pick'ems, they would tell you to go Zach Moss over all these guys, where Zach Moss currently is sitting with a pick'em line of 93.5 total yards, even odds to score a touchdown as well. That's higher than the projection that you have for Bijan Robinson. Good matchup going up against Cincy, where we can assume that the Colts have a shot to be winning this game and running the ball in the second half. And then Rachaad White will be our last running back in here at 14. I mean, all of these options, super safe in this tier. Really like Rachaad White as well with his receiving usage. Very similar to Jahmyr Gibbs. The only difference between White and Gibbs in my mind is Gibbs will be playing in the better offense. But if you go ahead and if you look at the underdog pick'em, so what you have currently for these two running backs, they have White at about 13 fantasy points, almost 2 full fantasy points ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. So the reality of the situation is I'm probably a little bit too excited about the Jahmyr Gibbs play this week. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to be going with Justin Jefferson. Obviously, getting Jefferson back in is a massive question mark. You don't know what to expect. They currently have his underdog pick'em at 11.25 fantasy points. I am for sure going with more than 11 points for Justin Jefferson this week. Sounds like he should be fully healthy. Sounds like they were overly cautious with Jefferson in bringing him back. And if you're looking at the implied team total right now for Minnesota, they have him at 21.75 points. And we know Vegas sportsbooks know what they're talking about. So if they're projecting out the Vikings to be that good, I'm going to play Jefferson with ease. We'll play Chase with ease. Obviously, both these guys are in a similar situation where they're elite level talents playing with subpar quarterbacks and what should be not great offenses. Then Mike Evans will be our next guy. Evans consistently going out there and giving you more than you would think from a touchdown rate perspective. And unlike someone like Courtland Sutton that we'll talk about a little bit later on, I think we can safely say that we should continue to expect this from a player like Mike Evans because we've seen it through his entire NFL career. Now, Kyren Williams will be all the way down at 18. Now, I understand Kyren Williams is extremely low here in this range, and I know you're probably a little bit pissed. to see him this low. But what I am thinking here with this ranking is this is a running back going up against the Baltimore Ravens, where you have an implied team total of about 18 points for the Los Angeles Rams. So Kyren Williams most weeks will be significantly ahead of where we have him here currently. However, specifically in this matchup, it would be something that I'm going to be looking to avoid. Now, Josh Jacobs will be our next guy at 19. Implied team total of 19 points. I mean, obviously, it's a fine matchup going up against Minnesota. Austin Eckler will be our next guy at 20. You had the head coach here in Los Angeles, aka someone I think should be fired, coming out and saying that Eckler is maybe going to be in a committee going forward, that this is going to be more of a competition here between Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly. Maybe they're saying that just to get a rise out of Eckler. Maybe they're saying it to just light a fire under his butt. I mean, Eckler already has that fire lit under him because of someone with no contract next year. And it does look like all the efficiency and all the juice may be left at this point. Maybe he did hit the age cliff. Michael Pittman will be our next guy in year at 21. You have an applied team total of about 20.25 points. I mean, this is an offense that should be able to throw the ball. Michael Pittman's been great all season. Our third most drafted wide receiver on Underdog. So, I mean, I am obviously rooting for this guy. And then DJ Moore here as well. DJ Moore is in an offense where right now you actually have way more passing volume than you're used to projecting for Justin Fields here, because it is a beautiful matchup going up against Detroit. Justin Fields has averaged about 160 passing yards per game through his entire NFL career. The underdog pick'em for Fields this week is up at 193.5. This is a super aggressive projection for Justin Fields based off what we've historically seen. But it's all down to how bad this Detroit Lions defense is. So you feel very safe starting DJ Moore this week. Now, dropping down to our next guy, we're going to go Tony Pollard at 23. We're going to reiterate, Tony Pollard is still someone that you have to start every single week. He's a running back, one of the best offenses in the NFL, and he has a role as a receiver. That is exactly what we are going to be looking for now. The tough thing is you're going to go up against the Eagles here, where we would assume that you maybe have some more passing volume than rushing volume. I will say I am actually going to be going with Tony Pollard to not score a touchdown this week as one of my favorite underdog pick'ems, given the tough matchup against Philly. I just think you have them throwing the ball a little more. And also, if you're new to Underdog Fantasy, you can sign up code FLOCK. Code FLOCK is going to give you a 100% deposit match and our rest of season fantasy football rankings. And for this game, you would get a special pick'em more than less than half a total yard for Dak Prescott with promo code FLOCK. And you can find that link in the description or the comment section. Now, going over to our next RB, we're going to go David Montgomery at 24. Should be a spot where the game's actually competitive if you're looking at the spread right now, but I don't know. I think that the Lions are going to handle business. I think that they should be able to run the ball in the second half. And I just want to stand by that this is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And I want to be ahead of market on both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery every single week. Isaiah Pacheco will be our next guy at 25. With Pacheco, I feel comfortable ranking him higher than this if we knew he was fully healthy. The issue maybe is he's missed practice on Wednesday, missed practice on Thursday. You don't know if we're going to have McKinnon, or I'm assuming we have no Jerick McKinnon. Obviously, if Pacheco's fully healthy and you have no McKinnon, you can move him higher than this. I do just want a little bit confirmation of what's going to be happening here with the health of these two backs. Saquon Barkley will be our next guy at 26. And we got two Monday night games this week, which is very weird. And we'll throw in Raheem Mostert here at 27 as well. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is going to get all the volume, but the issue is you're playing in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Tommy DeVito, was better before the bye. Still not someone that we are super excited about. And then looking at Mostert, I'm assuming that Devon Achane is going to take more and more and more, but similar to what we have in Detroit, these are two running backs that I am starting every single week. Here you have an applied team total of 30 points for the Miami Dolphins in this offense. You're going to be starting both players. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we will go Joe Mixon. Now, obviously, we were much lower on Joe Mixon this in the running back rankings that dropped Tuesday morning. The reason being is because we recorded that video right before the Monday night game. Mixon had a great game, but I still kind of think he's in a similar spot where he's a running back that's going to get every single touch out of his backfield, but he's going to be playing in a very bad offense. So I don't think much changes with Joe Mixon going up against Indy here. Obviously, you feel a little bit more comfortable based off what we just had, though. Now, Nico Collins will be our next wide receiver at 29. Now, Nico Collins and Noah Brown will be players that I'm much more excited about in the long term, but right now it is just very difficult. The reason being is you're going up against the Jets. The Jets have allowed the fewest points to opposing wide receivers so far this season in fantasy. So while, yeah, I am excited about Nico Collins with no Tank Dell, I'm excited about Noah Brown. It's just a very tough matchup. We'll go Ayuk and Debo here, 30-31. Volatile wide receivers in one of the best offenses in the NFL. So while, yeah, it's going to be hard to project them from week to week perspective, from a target share perspective, you're still starting these guys. Chris Olave will be here at 32 with Olave. The matchup against Carolina is not great. Carolina has not allowed a ton of points to opposing wide receivers so far this year. But the main reason for that, right, is you're able to run the ball in the second half against Carolina. Carolina is not going to get into a shootout with you, where maybe if you did begin to see Bryce Young actually be able to effectively move the ball down the field and put pressure on opposing offenses in the second half, then at that point, you could possibly see, I don't know, a little more production from wide receivers going up against Carolina. I'm just not comfortable banking that's going to be the case right now. Now, our next guy will be Devontae Adams. Adams, very bad offense, but he's going to get everything in it. Devonta Smith will be our next guy with Jalen Waddle, 34 and 35. While we did have Smith as that buy low candidate back about a month ago when he was like a wide receiver 3 in the community rankings on flogfantasy.com, he's gone up a lot since then. It's been great over the past month. Now that we're getting Dallas Goedert back in, I do think that we are going to have to be a little bit more hesitant to rank Smith where we had him previously, because the big reason we were looking to buy low on Smith was the departure of Dallas Goedert and how that was going to impact his role in this offense. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go DeAndre Swift. Swift, not on the injury report. Swift should be fully good to go. It's not a great matchup. However, I mean, you're going up against Dallas. You only have a 24.5 point implied team total. So yeah, I don't love the matchup. Obviously wasn't great last week, but I think we can blame it on the matchup then against the Niners. It's just not getting much easier here. Now, going over to Breece Hall, Breece Hall should have the majority of the touches in his backfield, but at the same time, you have an applied team total of 14.5 points. Should be one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Puka will be our next guy in at 38. Very similar to Kyren Williams. If you ask me my rankings for rest of season, Puka would be higher than this. If you go to the flogfantasy.com community rankings right now, you will see that people are valuing Puka a lot higher than this. It's all about that matchup going up against Baltimore. 16.5, 17 point implied team total. Very hard to get behind options in this offense if this is supposed to be how bad it is. I mean, you'll see with our Cooper Kupp ranking a little bit later on how low we are on the Rams this week. DK Metcalf will be our next guy with Metcalf. Obviously, phenomenal Thursday night game. I mean, especially what I thought was a tough matchup against Dallas. He went out there, put on a show. If you're a Metcalf owner, you should be really happy. This week, you have an 18 point implied team total going up against the Niners, and Metcalf is only averaging 15 points per game. Really tough matchup. James Cook, tough matchup as well, but very good offense going up against KC. Should be a high scoring game. Javonte will be our next guy in at 41. If you are looking at Javonte Williams, this is a running back that continues to take more and more in Denver. I understand people are panicking because he has not scored a rushing touchdown so far this season, but we know that's going to be a little bit harder to predict than the underlying volume. Touchdowns will come and go. I am willing to bet on Javonte Williams because the underlying volume is consistently there. Now, Zay Flowers will be our next guy at 42. If you are looking at Zay Flowers, I don't know what to expect because Lamar Jackson just missed practice with an illness. And going back to that $1,000 underdog draft that I did, where we are one spot away from advancing to the playoff tournament, Lamar is my top quarterback. The guy that we are battling for the last spot with has Trevor Lawrence as his top guy. So please, all I'm asking, Lamar play, Lawrence do not. Obviously, it's very, very selfish, and it sounds crappy to say out loud. I'm sure if you have your own fantasy football teams, you kind of understand. Yes, maybe I'm a bad person. I want to win my fantasy leagues. Now, Derrick Henry will be our last guy in this tier. With Derrick Henry, it's been very simple to play all season. If it's a game where the Titans are going to be competitive or win the game, Derrick Henry is a phenomenal option. If they get down big, then you want nothing to do with Derrick Henry. There is a 13-point spread in this game right now. this is not going to be the spot where you want to go through and play Derrick Henry. This is not the type of game environment you want, ladies and gentlemen. Now, our next tier will be led off with Courtland Sutton. Sutton continues to score a touchdown on about 13% of his targets. There's no way in hell that keeps up, right? Like you look at Mike Evans. Mike Evans done that through his entire career. It's been a much smaller sample that you are looking at with Mike Evans. So it is tougher to say that that's going to continue to be the case. But still, if you're looking at Sutton, I think that you can play him. Good matchup against the Chargers, where it should be a higher scoring game overall. DeAndre Hopkins, Garrett Wilson will be our next two guys. Both similar spots where you get a ton of volume. You're in horrendous offenses. The Jets should actually be a worse offense than Tennessee this week if you're looking at Vegas sportsbooks. But with that being said, I just think that Garrett Wilson's a better player. I think he has a big play potential that DeAndre Hopkins does not possess at this point of their respective careers. Now, Cooper Kupp will be our next guy in here at 47. And yes, we are much lower on Cooper Kupp here in these flex rankings. Now that we had a shot to really think about this than we were earlier in our wide receiver rankings this week, it is a tough spot for Cooper Kupp going up against Baltimore. If you are looking at his underdog pick'em currently, they have Cooper Kupp for more than less than 47.5 receiving yards. More than less than 9.15 points. This is the lowest underdog pick'em that you have had, I think, all season for Cooper Kupp here. And it is very difficult to get behind him. Calvin Ridley, I mean, if Lawrence plays, will be much higher than this. The question is, will Lawrence play? Selfishly, I'm kind of hoping he doesn't. Obviously, that's a very selfish way of thinking. Rashee Rice will be our next guy, continuously taking more in KC. I mean, completely startable going up against Buffalo, which should be a very high scoring game. We'll have Adam Thielen and Chuba Hubbard as the next two options, 50 and 51. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard has been absolutely crushing it. Not super confident going out there saying he's going to still have every single touch out of this backfield, and Miles Sanders will have legitimately nothing. I mean, it looks like that was the case this past week, but you go back 2 weeks ago and they split the backfield 50-50. Now, our next year will be led off with Chris Godwin, someone that's had a considerable amount of volume. And, you know, typically I want to go through and I want to bet on volume. I want to say, okay, the guy that has the target share is going to be someone that we are continuing to go through and say is going to do well. But, I mean, all season now he's underperformed. And literally all season. All season now, Mike Evans has been the guy. The Dameon Pierce will be our next guy at 53. Looks like he's the starter. It's super hard to know for sure. Jerome Ford, 54. Looks like he's the starter. He is the starter. But the issue is this is just going to be a horrendous offense here. Then Tyler Lockett, Josh Downs, London T. Higgins. Our wide receivers, I'll throw in the egg. You can start him if you need to. If you're dealing with injuries, then sure, go for it. But the reality of the situation is I do not feel comfortable with any of these guys. I mean, especially even if you look at T. Higgins, I mean, I would way rather you go through and literally just take what you have on Underdog for T. Higgins, where they're currently sitting him at 36.5 receiving yards, more than less than, and 3 receptions. So yeah, instead of going through and starting him, if you really believe in T. Higgins, go say he's going to have more than 36.5 total yards on Underdog. But I think that should be it for this video. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. Really wishing you the best of luck. Of course, I'll be live this weekend giving you all the up-to-date injury news that we have. And if you have not done so, hit that like button, subscribe. And if you wanted to check out any of those Underdog pick'ems, you can find that link in the description in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK will get you a 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And that's Dak Prescott special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for the Sunday night game. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day, and really hope we get to see you out with a live stream tomorrow night.